you anything. You're all very civil individuals, but please be noted that our conversation is being recorded. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us. My name is Rishu Mahalaha. I am an economic advisor working on this Strengthening Stark initiative. I'll start by just sort of giving a quick background, but before we do that, I want to do some introductions. So that's me. I have my colleague on the phone as well, Janelle Lee. Janelle, wave there. Janelle and I help coordinate many of the Strengthening Stark efforts. And so it's a real pleasure to be able to speak with you. We've heard so much about the work you're doing. Over the last several months, we've been very much engaged with the presidents of your respective universities, and they're very enthusiastic about us facilitating this type of a discussion. So thank you for joining us. We'll get into the details in a bit, but let's do quick introductions. And Scott, if you wouldn't mind going first and just introducing yourself.
Sure, yeah. My name's Scott Walkus. I'm a professor of international politics at Malone University, where I've been teaching for 20 years. This year, I am stepping into a new role part-time as a fellow for student success, focusing particularly on career development. And so that's why I'm connected in here today.
Wonderful. Welcome. Sarah?
Hi, I'm Sarah Fugit. I'm Director of Career Development at the University of Mount Union, and I've been with Mount Union for about 17 years.
Great. Teresa?
Hi, I'm Teresa Klimek. I'm the Service Learning Coordinator at Walsh University. I just started my position this past August, but I'm also an alum of Walsh, so I have that connection as well. And my department actually sits within the Career Center now within our greater experiential learning department. So that's why I'm sitting in on this conversation.
Wonderful. Welcome. Sean?
Yes.
Would you mind introducing yourself?
I'm Sean Fowler, and I'm the Assistant Director for Employer Relations and Internships at Kent State University at Stark. I've been here about 3 years, and I've been in career services for over 20.
Wonderful. Welcome. Chris?
Hi, Chris Tavaloy, Assistant Director, Career Services, Kent State Stark. I've been here 16 years. 13.
Good, good. Lisa?
Hi, I'm Lisa Hart. I'm Director of Academic Services at Kent State Stark. I've been in this role for almost 10 years.
Wow, good. And Laura?
Laura Carey, Director of Career Services at the University of Akron. I've been in this role for 5 years.
Excellent. Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We've got incredible amount of experience here. So here's sort of the objective agenda for today. If it's helpful, maybe I can begin by sharing with you real briefly, 5 minutes, the Strengthening Stark effort that's underway, what all that encompasses. And really, this was supposed to be a first introductory conversation call to just put some faces, names together. And I have a handful of questions I'd like to raise. There's a variety of issues, challenges, opportunities that we have in Stark County. And given the sort of the role that each one of you plays with your respective institutions, you sort of have a very direct experience and understanding of potential opportunities. So we wanted to connect with you directly and learn from you before we even, let me just start by saying what we don't know. Janelle and I, neither of us are career placement experts. So this world, we don't really understand it. We don't understand the terminology and your worlds, but we know we can learn a lot from you. And the whole reason we wanted to set up this conversation was to get this process started. So if that's okay, maybe I'll just take 5 minutes to give you a quick overview of Strengthening Stark. Some of you may have been exposed to it already. But real briefly, Strengthening Stark it started as a as sort of an issue that was being recognized by local leaders in Stark County around economics, population, net loss that we were seeing in the community. So a set of leaders came together. For several years, they were meeting to figure out what they could do. In 2017, they commissioned a study to understand what the challenges were. The Strengthening Stark strategic report came out in 2017 summer, and it basically said three things: that Stark County was getting older, Stark County was getting poorer, and Stark County was getting smaller. That was sobering for the leaders. It was stark, no pun intended. And given that conclusion, it really generated a lot of interest across the community. And obviously, Stark County has a large footprint, many different communities across the county. Really got all of our leaders across the county engaged to say, what can we do about this? So in fall of 2017, we started a tactical planning initiative, which wrapped up this summer. So myself and Janelle were involved with pieces of that, sort of spearheading some of that work. And the way that report came together, there were really 7 elements that we highlighted as core areas of focus if we were to change the trends of the economics in Stark County. Those 7 areas were: 1, how do we govern ourselves economically, public officials, private sector leaders, nonprofits? How do we manage the process in a way where we're all aligned to similar set of goals and we're working towards collective impact? Second was, how do we help retain and improve the quality of talent in our community? And that's a really big conversation. Obviously, this conversation is tied to that, the workforce talent pipeline. Third was, how do we retain and expand existing businesses in the community? Fourth was, how do we attract strategically important businesses to our region? Fifth was innovation and entrepreneurship. How do we help cultivate new businesses in our community? Sixth is infrastructure, things like broadband, things like transportation, making sure we have core infrastructure elements in place to help sustain businesses, economy. And then last is community engagement. We can do all the great work, but if we're not methodically engaging with key leaders across the community, then our efforts fall short. That's sort of the broad umbrella of work. 7 major pillars. Underneath those major pillars, there's 29 unique specific initiatives that we are currently looking to roll out. So that's sort of the big picture story. One piece of the work that we launched spring of this year was to start to meet with your respective college leaders and presidents. As we started meeting with them, we said, Stark County is incredibly rich with this higher education opportunities that we have in the region. And there's sort of a common theme of challenges that our colleges and universities are facing, whether it's enrollments, issues related to health, mental health challenges, some of the things that Scott, you were mentioning earlier. And structurally, our colleges and universities have never really come together to collectively problem solve in terms of economic sustainability of our region. So there was a lot of enthusiasm. Obviously, there's a lot of history and there's issues that get in the way of great collaboration, but generally everyone agreed that this is something we need to be thinking more about. But thanks to their blessing, this conversation sort of has come to be. And there's a similar conversation taking place tomorrow in a different arena. And let me talk about that a little bit, and then we'll focus really in this part of our discussion. And tomorrow's conversation around innovation. And so each one of your university has identified an individual that's aligned with innovation, corporate partnerships. How can we use our higher education institutions that have incredible thinking, incredible research, and pair that up with our private sector in a way that helps support and grow our local economy, local businesses? And we think there's some opportunities there if we can be strategically focused. So we are having that conversation tomorrow. So let's talk about this conversation. We're speaking today really because, as I mentioned at the onset, Janelle and I are not the experts that guide college lead students through career placements, career opportunities. We have spoken to several students, both in in the high school arena and college arena, and we know there's some gaps. There's maybe gaps around what our students are thinking about as career choices. Maybe they're misinformed or underinformed on what choices are available to them. There's sort of myopia around what are the opportunities today versus what will those opportunities look like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years out. And one of the things we're doing is really being very data oriented. So working with our regional partners, state partners, national partners to figure out what does that mapping of career pathways looks like? How are the careers and jobs evolving? What does the local economy look like? And we believe there's an opportunity here. We believe that if we can bring some of your thinking and some of our data together, perhaps we can, again, have a strategic focus in one or two areas that we can try to think about, problem solve around, and maybe pilot one or two concepts. So with that, let me just pause there. I've shared a lot and just see if you guys have any thoughts, reactions, or questions so far. Any thoughts, Sarah? Any thoughts, reactions?
Nothing at this point.
Okay. Anyone else? Any thoughts, reactions? Make sense generally what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense so far.
Okay. So this is sort of the art and science of community/economic development, which is we find that sometimes you have to get the smart people together and kind of help create some objective goal vision. And then through some meandering conversation, a little bit of magic happens. And we get there, but how we get there is going to be meandering. And it's very much part of the process. So I'm saying that because I'm really asking for your patience because this is the first conversation. I imagine there'll be several conversations, and it takes a little bit of us getting to know each other, us getting to know what we're thinking about, and then eventually we start to identify some focal areas. So maybe let me ask an open-ended question, and please jump in whoever would like. In your worlds where you sit right now, what would you say is one or two of your biggest challenges that you face as you're trying to, in some capacity, you've got a student body that's relying on you to sort of connect them. I imagine, this is my interpretation, I could be wrong even in that interpretation, connecting the student body to potential job opportunities, careers, career fairs, internship, learning opportunities, service opportunities. So as you sit at that intersection, what are some of the big challenges you are facing right now?
So Rashu, at Mount Union, when we look at our student population, we're a very traditional college-age population, 18 to 22-year-olds. I would say most of the students are so focused on the here and now that they're not worrying too much about where the job is going to be after graduation. They'll worry about that once they graduate. Mm-hmm. Now that's certainly not all of them, but it's a large number of them. And they'll go back home after graduation and they'll figure it out.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd concur. That's an issue we see as well with the same traditional 18 to 22-year-old college student population. They tend to see a disconnect. They don't think about what's going to happen after. They just think, if I can just get through this and I get this magic piece of paper, this diploma, then I'll go, then I'll think about it. And there's that disconnect. And so what I find the biggest challenge is to try to get their imagination stimulated so they can begin to see what they're doing in their coursework and think about internships that can connect them to that world after college. But it's hard to get students to be interested in those things. They think, I'll just put that off till later. I agree with what Teresa said.
Got it. I'm sorry. I've got a minor emergency that's just popped up. If you will just pardon me for 2 minutes, I'm going to step away for 2 minutes and I'll be right back. My sincere apologies. You guys can continue conversing.
So Scott, I'm wondering what's appearing on your screen. You've called me Teresa twice. So is Teresa showing up under my name?
I keep seeing Teresa popping up as the first. Yeah, it's
okay. So I'm Sarah.
I'm sorry, Sarah. Yeah, I apologize for.
I just assumed that there was something.
I keep seeing the name Teresa at the screen, right under mine, and then I'm seeing you.
Okay.
I don't have any video actually for Teresa. She's at Walsh, so.
Okay. I agree with everything Sarah's saying, but it's not me. I cannot take credit for it.
Fair enough. Now I see Sarah. Yeah, that's the trick. Is if, at least the way the view's going, the person who is speaking and is on the full screen, I don't have their name, but then I look over and I see Teresa. Then when Teresa started speaking, then her name went away, and then I saw Sarah's name. So. I'm sorry. It's a new interface for me. I'm trying to navigate, so I apologize.
Yeah, I'm just lucky I got on here. I tried the call in first, and I got in, but I was the only one there apparently. So.
Fair enough. But Teresa, you find that to be the case with Walsh students as well?
I do. I think we also have a lot of students who feel like once they choose their path and what degree they want, that's all they can ever do in their life.
Yeah.
So we're really trying to encourage, and they have a hard time getting past like, okay, I have a history degree. You can do so many different things. You know, what does the options look like? And you really have a lot of doors open for you, but what is, getting them past like, okay, it's a history degree, yes, but you can do other things with it. And what that looks like really, I think is something that is a challenge for us as well.
And I think often if we can get them into the office for the one-on-one conversation, we can help take those blinders off, at least initially. They don't get it all at once.
Yeah.
But they start looking at other alternatives. It's just a matter of getting them into the office to have those discussions. Typically, we can get them in just fine for the resume. Maybe for interview prep, but to have each of those discussions with them, that's hard to get them in for that many appointments. We see you're back, Rashu.
Yes, sorry. Okay, so getting students into career office, that seems to be a challenge.
Right, just they have other priorities, or they're coming in first, let's get my resume taken care of first, then maybe we'll see about this, then maybe we'll see about that.
Great. Other thoughts?
I would just concur with that problem of getting students into advising, and I would love to see us have more of our academic advising work with career advising and help students at that stage as a faculty member. I think there's a natural connection. The students have to go through us to do advising and schedule classes, but currently we don't have any real explicit training or have real intentions to do also career coaching. But I think that to me would be a really powerful way, because we currently have a traditional model. I assume that's the case at Mount Union, where we have a career services office and we can sort of send students to that, but they don't generally go. They just underutilize the resource hugely and always have.
But of course,
if there's explicit connection with advising or something in the classroom, we can sort of funnel them over, but otherwise they don't use it enough.
I think most of us would agree if every student used the service, we couldn't keep up.
Right.
But truly, more students need the service.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
We would echo that from Kent State's perspective too. I think sometimes when we're working with outside partners, there's a general misconception that we require students to maybe do an internship, and in a lot of academic majors that's simply not the case, or that the conception that if they're attending our institution that they're naturally either required or participate in more of a forced nature with some of our services. And in a lot of areas, that's simply not the case. It is truly elective on the student, and many students will view it simply from the perspective of, if it's not part of a class and I'm not getting a grade for it, or I'm not receiving credit, then I really don't need to do this, because their focus, as everybody said, is on, I've got to graduate, I've got to get the grades. They see that as tangible. They see the grades, they see the attendance at classes as tangible. If I don't do this, I don't get this. We're not in that same view.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
I concur.
Yep, absolutely.
Anyone else? Any other thoughts? Laura, any thoughts from you?
Well, I'm sitting here trying to think how to respond to that, because we have seen an increase in student engagement this past year, and it's still absolutely, they underutilize career services, but engagement is up remarkably so. And I think it's because our students are realizing that they're here for a degree and they need experiential learning to make it in their career. And I think that messaging is coming through strong, campus-wide, statewide, and students are engaging with us earlier. The numbers, we would love to see, still not there, but I think our numbers were up 67% over last year as far as students scheduling appointments with us. So we are seeing an increase. I don't know if anyone else has seen an improvement or not.
So I don't want it to sound like we don't see any students, because we're very busy. We see students. It's just certainly not all of them.
There's some opportunity there. Right.
If we were be careful what you wish for type thing, if all the students came in, we couldn't handle that kind. Laura, I'm curious as to where the students are getting that message from. Where is the message coming from that they're receiving and that they're responding to it?
Just that they need to have internships or experiential learning, that message.
Right. So who's giving it to them, and why are they responding to it? Because just because they get the message doesn't mean they'll act on it.
Right. Our faculty has really joined that cause of encouraging students. Our leadership, our employers that come to campus, more and more of our employers are looking for interns, and the students, are getting that message from employers. We speak to parents at new student orientation. Career Services gives a breakout to parents, so we're getting that message to parents, and then they're getting that message to their students. So I think it's coming from all directions.
Let me ask you this. Thank you for that, Laura. That's really helpful. So the two or three things we've heard. One is that generally it seems like students are not fully leveraging the career placement services. They are using it, but they could be doing more. Maybe there's a lack of understanding. Maybe they're not making time on their schedule because they're focused more on academics. And the other piece seems to be just how do you educate students on when and how to best utilize the career placement services. So those are some of the issues that I'm hearing. Let me ask a sort of corollary question. If you had your magic wand, you could wave it and create sort of one a process, a tool, a partnership, what would make your life easier, or you think you could drive greater impact through your career placement office to your respective students? What do you think that would look like?
Well,
question.
It is a good question, and so I think we're all pausing. I'm thinking about it. One thought is, it would be wonderful if we could get the incoming students and families out of the mindset that this major is somehow a direct ticket to a particular job. And I think Teresa was saying that a little bit from Walsh. We have students and parents who think, the major maps directly into a career field and is some sort of I guess it's a magic ticket. I don't know where this perception and ideal comes from, it's powerful, and we've seen it for years, and it's just gotten even more intensified in recent years, so that, you know, everyone understands social work leads to social work, business leads to business, and, you know, fill in the blank, professional engineering leads to engineering. And then those of us in the liberal arts, like history, I think, which Teresa mentioned, that people say, well, what do you do with that? And I say, you know, that's the wrong question. It's the wrong perception, especially in light of, as I understand the dynamics of our evolving economy, there are jobs that don't even exist yet that you need to be broadly trained to be able to adapt into and to learn how to learn. And if you put all your eggs in one narrow basket, you could have some real problems later. And if you find out after 3 years in education that you hate education, you're well far too down the line, you're too invested in that narrow sort of preparation. And you're not as adaptable, you'll have to do more retraining. So that reflects, of course, my standpoint as a person in the liberal arts and you know, arts and sciences. But I do think that what I'm speaking to, though, is that perception in the culture that prospective students bring in, that the major is somehow a ticket to a job, and that they perceive the map of the major directly related to the job. And there's so much pressure then on that choice. And I think it's a misperception of the reality of how college works, and it's also a misperception about the way the labor market works, and even what employers desire.
Right.
And yet it's powerful and repeated over and over. Yeah. And so I don't know why there's the parents and family come in here, and the market is over here, and there's this just wide divergence, and I don't know where it comes from. So if I could wave a magic wand, I'd love for those to align.
Right. Scott, let me repeat what you said. Just, I know there's a lot there, but what you're saying is, as incoming parents and students are coming in and they're going through the process of the student, parents thinking about the students' academic focus, majors, it seems like the conversation sort of ends there, which is, I want to be a history major. That's what I'm going to do for 4 years. Then I'll think about what I'm going to do with that. What you're saying is sort of integrate the thinking related to what major, what academic focus you'll have, and sort of start pre-planning for what the career pathways are. So potentially you could even be building experiences, whether it's in the teaching field, it's in research, and sort of incrementally building experiences alongside the academic piece. So when you're graduating, you have multiple options open to you. Did I hear that correctly? Is that what you were saying? Or no?
I'd say, yeah, sort of. I think that the families and parents and students perceive that the college is about a job and the major is about a job, whereas I think at least we see it as it's an attempt to be broadly educated, and then the career experiential learning piece, I think, goes alongside.
Got it. Okay.
That I would say, yeah, I would include internships, experiential learning, connections with career coaches, the career office, early, repeated.
Yeah.
But, you know, separate the two out, actually, to be honest. Really focus on broad preparation.
Right.
And make sure you're also doing those more practical skill building things, both at the same time. But I think the families think it's a package, that they come to this university and they get this ticket that's a 4-year ride, and at the end of it there's some magical thing, and then they get a job, and there's not much thought at all about anything along the way. It's just, I come in, I major in social work, I become a social worker. That's a linear pathway without any. Maybe Sarah, look like you're nodding your head. Please jump in, please. I've talked too much already. Please.
No, I agree with what you're saying. You know, I know some organizations, some institutions require students to take a career planning or professional development course. That would be fabulous if we could do something like that. The only problem is depending on where the student is, maturity-wise. Some students, you know, you can make them take the course, and if the student isn't ready for the information or isn't ready for that thought process yet, it's going to bounce right off of them.
Yeah.
And they're just going to think it was a useless class. That's really the trick, is when is the student ready and receptive to these ideas?
Right. One thing that I don't think this is a secret. The reason we're talking to you is because we need to find ways to retain your graduates in Stark County.
Mm-hmm.
We're great with them going other places, getting experiences, but obviously creating at least an exposure for these individuals, these students, while they're here, to help them see what's in the ecology, and then let them make the most informed decision on whether they want to stay here or they want to go someplace else. So that's kind of what we're going for. And thank you, Sarah, for the point you made. I just want to highlight that this career mapping conversation is actually one of our 29 initiatives that we're talking about, which is, and we hadn't actually talked, we weren't thinking as much in the college realm. Our goal is in 24 months, every 8th grader will have a career plan, starting at the middle school level, starting the dialogue around careers, academics, experiences, personal choices, starting at the middle school, carrying through the high school, and sounds like if there's a need at the college level also, we can find a way to sort of integrate that process, so it almost becomes like this thing. You know, a student incoming freshman has this career map that they're walking in with, and then it continues to be updated as the student's progressing through the system. So I think there could be really nice tie-in there. Thank you, Sarah. Other thoughts? Laura, thoughts from you?
A wish list thought, if you were looking for just a dream thought.
Yeah.
I think data would be very helpful to us. I know lots of times we're trying to share with students how much their starting salaries could be higher if they had experiential learning. We're trying to, gather placement data. That's hard for us to get. So I think for me, a wish list would be if we had a way to tell our story better to students with data. That's what I think one of our challenges is.
Yeah. Again, great point. One of our other 29 initiatives is one that focuses completely on data. So we're working with Ohio Means Jobs and looking to build a much more robust and accurate data list on our regional jobs. We want to create one single comprehensive, accurate database that tells us what jobs are open right now, what does the future of each one of these occupation categories looks like, what's the wage range for each one of these occupations, and then be able to share that information and also be able to tell, given sort of the current educational and the talent pipeline dynamics, which occupations we think will have a gap between supply of labor and the demand for labor. So we're working on that, and actually, hopefully in the next 8 weeks, we'll have a good start for that database. So Laura, that's a great point. Well, we will certainly make sure that you guys have a chance to react to what data is there, and if you think there's additional dimensions we should be adding to it, we want to make that information accessible to you. Okay, thank you for that. Sean, Chris, or Lisa, any thoughts from you guys?
No, I mean, a lot of what you said, what our colleagues have said rings true. I mean, I just want to reiterate that I think and this is more internal in a lot of universities, we've had success on a small scale with trying to infuse a lot of career development type of lessons into courses. We do it on our campus here with our communication studies classes, where there's kind of a capstone course in which roughly between a third and a half of a course really centers on career development. And when we can do that in the classroom and not have it be a standalone type of option for students, we see a lot of success in getting that message across. I think, though, a lot of times when we look at capstone, that's a little too late for development. That's more about just kind of going out and the steps to get a job. We've discussed kind of internally here, at least, looking at things that are going on in our sophomore students' experience There was a great push many years ago, and still is true today, that we spend a lot of time on retention of first-year students, and then we spend a lot of time on kind of the back end and making sure that students are ready to go get a job, and usually that's in the last semester or so, or the last year. But I think where the shortage is internally for us often is in the rising sophomore to junior year. You kind of have a gap of us not being able to really reach out to those students. Because in a lot of cases, they feel like they're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing because the institution is telling them, this is what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be going to class, you're supposed to be, getting good grades and all of those things. And the disconnect oftentimes is starting that process earlier than, oh, it's my senior year, I'm getting ready to graduate, I better go see career service.
Got it.
It's all about the career development component and giving students the opportunity to experience opportunities, information, having employers coming to campus, allowing them to interact with them, and then moving that into a deeper experience, maybe taking them on tours so they can see what different industries, different organizations look like, because students don't know what they don't know. And they can't experience or understand how a management degree can play out in so many different ways within an organization if they've never even seen somebody that might work in a field of management. It's the only thing they've ever seen is maybe the manager at the retail store at the mall. There's a whole other level, and being able to provide those experiences for students helps them make better decisions. And taking that and giving them the tools so that they can explore, crystallize their thoughts as to what might be they can do moving forward, and then allowing them the opportunity to apply for positions. It's not really the old model of what used to be called placement offices, which has sort of gone away. We no longer place individuals any place. We allow them to explore and apply for opportunities, and they have choices. And then we coach them through those experiences.
Got it. Okay, well, this has been tremendously helpful. Obviously, we're just starting the conversation, and you've given us sort of helped lay the ground for I think the big patterns that you're seeing. And it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, we have multiple institutions represented on this call. And sounds like there is a little bit of overlap in terms of the types of challenges and opportunities that you're seeing. So let's do this. Let's sort of go to the next chapter of this conversation, which is, what can we be doing collectively? And let me throw out maybe 2 or 3 options, and maybe you can react and say, what sounds interesting? What do you think could be helpful? And obviously, we want to pick a handful of options, maybe 1 or 2, that hopefully help you directly in your day-to-day jobs. And then as we're sort of solving for some of this together, the burden of solving this becomes easier because now it's, a team of half a dozen people thinking about this together. So let me throw out one hypothesis on how we could proceed, and please react to it. If I was to take some of the notes from today and make sort of very simple Google document that says major challenges, here's a list of major challenges we're seeing. Major opportunities, some of the things, sort of wish list. If we wave our magic wand, here's some of the things that would be really interesting for us to think about developing or building. And maybe third column is, something interesting that you're already doing that you think we as a community should be aware of. And obviously, if it's proprietary and you feel like, no, this is something we want to keep to ourselves, totally understand that. We kind of need to find that happy balance of each institution having a great, unique value proposition that's just you, but then also finding 1 or 2 areas where we can all be driving some synergies. So those 3 areas, what are the biggest challenges? If we have a magic wand, what could be some opportunity? And third, what are some interesting assets programs, things you're doing that may be good for others to know also. So if we could sort of think about filling that out in the next week or two, maybe we can then have a follow-up conversation. This online platform is actually, I think it's working pretty well. And given that we are all sort of geographically dispersed, I'm open to having another session on this platform, or we can try to do something in person for, say, 2 hours, where we're coming together, we're brainstorming, and the objective of that conversation is to see, are there 1 or 2 areas that we can all get enthusiastic about, that you can go back to your leadership and say, you know, here's an initiative that we're working with other universities and StrengtheningStark and team. And by the way, when I say StrengtheningStark, there's a whole business side to this conversation. So as you're talking about things like engaging with businesses, getting businesses on your campus, as speakers for site visits, internship placements, that all is part of this conversation. And so we've actually already created a menu, and behind Janelle, you can actually see a menu. Janelle, if you want to just pull that down, that's a menu that we've created for our local businesses that says, you know, if you want to engage with our, I know you can't read it. I know you can't read it, but we'll be happy to send you a soft copy of that. What you're looking at there is basically what our businesses said is, you know, we work here, we want to engage, but it's just too difficult. We don't know how to engage with the workforce partners in the community. So we said, okay, here's 5 simple ways that you as a business can engage. You know, on the smallest end of the spectrum, it's once a year for 1 hour, come and speak to our students about what you do. That's it, 1 hour a year, that's your entire commitment. On the other end of the spectrum, if you're really ready to put some resources down, maybe hire an intern, you know, coach them, mentor them, pay them, and help build that talent pipeline. So that's what that menu is saying. So the reason I sort of went off on the tangent on this piece is that as we're talking to you and as you're identifying potential challenges, opportunities, we can take those priorities and then go to our chambers, go to economic development, go to our businesses and say, here's things that we've really got to figure out how you can help us support our local educational institutions. So again, let me recap. 2 weeks or so, we sort of collect our thoughts on a shared document. Then we come together either on this virtual platform or in person, and we have a brainstorming thing. Now, I know end of year, I'm not sure if this is good time or bad time, so we can think of a time that works well for you. But let me just pause there and then see what you guys think, your reactions. Teresa, thoughts?
I think both ideas are a good idea. I think maybe the online platform starting out is a better idea, so we can get more solid things on paper before, if we're going to follow up with a group meeting with people. That way it's more kind of, we have pathways that are clearer, rather than just kind of a little bit all over the place conversation. Yeah,
great. And Teresa, I'm sorry, I think I skipped, I didn't ask you, I'm sorry. Did you have anything else you wanted to add, whether on opportunities, challenges? I'm sorry, I somehow skipped asking you for your thoughts. Please.
No, that's okay. I think a lot of the things here at Walsh echoes exactly what everyone else has been saying. I don't think there's anything that I can really think of that's very unique or different, but definitely echoing what everyone has already said.
Okay, great. And my apologies for missing you. Let's see, Scott, your thoughts, sir, on next steps?
Yeah, I think what Teresa said makes some sense, that we could take a look at a Google Doc, maybe, type up some thoughts and respond to a list of, initial propositions, and maybe then have an additional follow-up on the video chat here, just to try to, throw out possible options so we have something a little bit more concrete. I really like this idea that we could find something that might be beneficial for all of us, something we could all do better together as institutions than individually. So yeah, that sounds great.
Great. Sean, Chris, and or Lisa?
We're good at this end. That's fine.
Okay, good. Laura?
I'm game for either in-person meeting or how we did today. That's fine. I have to jump off. I'm sorry, my team's waiting for me for a meeting. I apologize.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you. I look forward to the time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care. Sarah?
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be, if we could find a common time, I think an in-person meeting, a few hours, would be great. I like the idea of us all maybe contributing some ideas beforehand, though,
Yeah.
so that we,
Sure.
yeah, so that that's all done beforehand, and the meeting could be a little more streamlined.
Yeah, sure. So,
And I apologize, I'm also going to have to log out here.
no problem. Okay. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much, everyone. So we'll do this. I'll send you a virtual document, Google document, where we'll start capturing some of our thoughts. And two, I'll send you an invite for potential dates, and then we can hold a second virtual call. And then based on the progress on that call, we will then set up an in-person discussion, potentially in the January timeframe. Pardon me? Oh, yes. Oh, Janelle makes a good point. We have a StrengtheningStark web portal, a website, and you can find a lot of the background materials there. So if you have any questions, you can, I direct you there to get some more background content. Okay, well, great. Let's pause there. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate everyone's feedback. This has been tremendously helpful. And look for some follow-up materials from us, and we will be in touch. Thank you so much. You guys have a great day, and if we don't talk to you next week, have a great Thanksgiving. Take care.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks.